it automatically will post to my YouTube, and then I'll just copy and paste that to you guys.
Okay, so we're
hopefully
live, basically.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So, Amelia, do you want to go first with your questions, or with your?
Sure. Should we do them one at a time and then each answer, or do you want me to like just go through them all?
Yeah, just go through them all, and then we'll kind of recap.
Okay. So I interviewed my sister-in-law. She has 3 kids, aged 5, 3, and 1. None of them are special needs, but she runs like a small day home out of her home, and one of the girls is slightly autistic, so she kind of has a little bit of experience with it. My sense of normal. Not exactly sure what that means, to be honest. I don't know. Do you guys know what they mean by that?
By normal?
Yeah. One of the questions, what's your sense of normal?
I don't know. I don't think there is such thing as normal.
I think that's probably just, well, I mean, because it says, after doing this interview, what is your sense of normal? What does normal mean? So I think it's just whatever your definition of normal is. I mean, to a mom with special needs, that's their normal.
Oh, okay, got you. Well, for her, I think all of her kids are just fairly average. I think they're really bright children. So, for her sense of normal is, I don't really know how to explain it, I guess. I don't know, I'm struggling with this one. I mean, like with the child with the special needs, she said that she had to adjust to it because her children were all so normal, average, and with the special needs girl, she had to learn how to, like, what to expect out of her, what not to expect, how to challenge her, what to just kind of say, oh, that's just her character. One example that she gave me was when she's really happy, she does this really like loud squeal, and she said it's the most annoying sound to her, but it's child being happy. So it's like, do I shush the child or do I let her express her happiness? So she had to find her own sense of normal. My sense of normal, I'm still struggling with how to figure that one out and how to word it. I'm just going to move on. Did you find that parents were often allowed to know if there was a delay or problem with their child? Well, she already kind of knew because when the child came in, the parents explained the situation. So that's how she came to the awareness of it. She was receptive to receiving services. The parents were giving her tips and tricks of how to handle it, and she was very cooperative and very eager to learn, because with someone who's autistic, and every autistic child is different, so learning how to handle each child can be rather difficult. So she had to learn all on her own. And she said that she was uncomfortable at first with a child's special needs, and that she was a little bit embarrassed when she took all the kids out to the park and out in public, because she felt that she had to like apologize for the child all the time. And she came to the acceptance that people knew that there was something wrong and they accepted it. She didn't have to apologize. She didn't have to feel embarrassed by it. It was just everyone came to terms with it and everyone was fine and happy with it. And those were the questions.
Okay. Do you want me to go next?
Sure.
Okay. So I interviewed my grandma, and because my uncle was diagnosed with quite a few different things. So my grandma had 4 kids, and the 2 oldest were girls, and then the 2 younger ones were boys. And pretty much all of them seemed to be normal except for the oldest boy. So he was like the middle child, Ben, and he back then the teachers didn't know how to help him, but he was struggling with writing and reading. And like in kindergarten, they first saw signs of trouble because he was kind of slower at talking and walking and all that, and he started stuttering when he was talking, and so they didn't really know what was going on. And then in kindergarten, they were able to kind of compare him to the other kids his age, and the kindergarten teachers didn't know how to help him. He wasn't equal with, I guess, what they were learning. They were learning how to write their names and the ABCs and stuff like that, and he didn't know any of that. And so he had a hard time with it. And he would always write things upside down or backwards. And so he just basically struggled throughout school, and in about 10th grade he finally was diagnosed with dyslexia because the doctor came along and kind of diagnosed him. But at that point he got kicked out of school because they didn't have any services for him, and he was kind of a distraction to the other children. And that's pretty much what happened with him. And then he was diagnosed also later with quite a few different things: ADHD, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and antisocial disorder. So he had quite a few different things. And he never did graduate from high school because he had all those issues, and the teachers back then didn't know how to help him. But we kind of talked about what our sense of normal is. I guess you could say a sense of normal would be like average, like the average developmental stages that we're supposed to go through. Did you find that they were the last to know? My grandma kind of noticed what was going on with him, but I would say she was the last to know about what was going on with her child because the teachers kind of figured it out but didn't really know exactly what to call it. And then the doctor was able to diagnose him. So she was receptive to receiving services but didn't really know where to go for them, and no one really helped her. So let's see. Did you get a sense of the parents were uncomfortable? She was kind of uncomfortable with it, but I wouldn't say she was embarrassed. Maybe she might have been in denial a little bit at first, but she's come to terms with it, and she's never been embarrassed of her son. And she's accepted him for him and tried to help him. So yeah.
Okay, cool. I thought I had the interview up, but I actually just had the questions up, so give me just a second here. And this is supposed to last for 50 minutes, so I don't know how we're going to drag this out for that long, but all right, so I interviewed a lady in my ward, and her son has Asperger's and ADHD. And one thing that I noticed, we actually live in a military ward, and so there's actually this base that we're in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and this base actually has a program where the soldier can petition to stay in this particular area for longer periods of time because they have a special needs child. So there's more programs out there through the government or programs out there through the cities to help these special needs children. So there's actually, I think we have about 150 kids in our primary, and there's about 12 that have either ADHD or autism or Asperger's, or there's actually quite a few. So this is actually a good area for me to be for this assignment. But so I interviewed this sister in my ward, and she said that she didn't really notice anything different with her son because he did everything at the normal ages of children. He started to walk and talk at the same ages, and but what she did notice is that when he was about 3 years old, he started answering the questions that she was asking him in a different way. Like it wasn't the normal answers. He would actually switch the answers and turn them around, and they would be he would actually kind of form stories out of the answers. She said that that's what kind of tipped her off, that maybe there was something different. So see, she says, and he was their oldest child, so she didn't really notice anything. But now that she's had more typicals, or had more children, she can see that that what he was doing was not normal. So so like I said, he was doing just fine when he was a toddler and everything. And it was about when he was 3 years old, and she says that he would entertain himself for a very long time, more so than a normal 3-year-old would do. He would just sit in the room and he loves Legos. That's his reward system now. He would just sit in his room and play with the Legos for hours and hours and hours. And so she said that was kind of one of the things that tipped her off. And she said that it's the program that I was talking to you about. It's the IEP program, and but he was actually put into this program for speech, and then he graduated out of that. But it wasn't necessarily his speech that he needed help for. It was more behavioral than it was his speech, because he always had a pretty big vocabulary. It was more. So she says Asperger's can be confused for immaturity, and that was the case with him. So it was more of his behavior than it was his developmental. So I guess it was the social skills that he was missing out on. So, but he was actually, so even though he had this Asperger's, he was placed in a gifted program in his kindergarten, because these children are generally really bright. So he was placed in a gifted program. And let's see. So the sense of, like I said, after doing this interview, what is your sense of normal, and what does normal mean? To me, it's just whatever is going on in that family. So for this friend of mine, her normal is that she is very, very organized. She is very structured in everything that she does. In fact, even in her callings, she's very, this is how it's going to be done, and this is, even with us as sisters serving with her, it's kind of, it takes a while to get used to when somebody's giving you marching orders as an adult. But so that's her normal, but it's not my normal. My normal is my situation with my children. As Amelia saw my 9-year-old trying to get me upstairs instead of have my responsibility here. So that's my normal, is having kids doing that kind of stuff. But so, and I don't think she didn't say that she felt like that she was the last to know. I mean, she kind of she kind of did some investigating because she had some concerns, um, and but she wasn't necessarily the last to know on what his diagnosis was. So, and she did not have any hesitation at all. In fact, she has done so much research that she loves to teach people about ADHD and Asperger's, and when I asked if she would be willing to do this interview, she was excited. So she didn't have any reservations at all about doing the interview. But one thing she did say is that as a parent with a special needs child, her biggest concern is how he gets along with others and how others treat him. So she's had to deal with bullying, depression, anxiety. She said that self-harm is actually something that is very, very common parts of disabled children, learning disabled children. She said that her son is socially awkward, so it was their job to kind of navigate and be the mediator with the sticky situations that he puts them in with his awkwardness, I guess. And let's see. And so her job is to be her child's advocate and to really be there to stick up for him and to teach, to educate. And I think that's really why she has done so much research, is because she wants to be an advocate, not just a bully mom. You know, she really wants to be an advocate for her child. So so she said, this is one thing that she said: having a child with dual diagnoses, special needs and gifted, is especially tricky as it can be hard to give him what he needs in the educational sense. Making sure that he has all the tools to succeed in a future job and social life are my main goals. So that's, you know, and I've watched her in church, how she seems to handle him. I mean, there's some other parents in our ward that they just kind of ignore their kids when they're acting out. They just kind of ignore them. And there's particularly right now, there's a senior couple missionary that the senior sister, she gets up and she takes the kids out because she sees how destructive they are, whereas the mom just sits there. But this friend of mine, she addresses it head on, and you know, she doesn't just let her kid do whatever. You know, even though he has these issues, she still expects him to behave the way that he's supposed to. So
it says something we can comment on others, and something that I really liked about what you just said with that mom is that she doesn't use it as an excuse. And I kind of see when some parents have children with disabilities, or even children who are just like a little bit slower, they make excuses for them and just allow them to get away with things that aren't okay. Like with my sister-in-law, she said with the girl that she watches, her parents said, "Oh, it's just how she is." They kind of like put it off for a while and weren't really coming to terms with it at first. And when this was like before she started watching her, but she heard stories about how the little girl would just be able to run around and do whatever she wanted all day long, and the parents just kind of accepted it, and they were kind of like the hippie parents, I kind of want to call them, that say like, our child will do whatever they want, and they know what's best for them, and they'll figure it out on their own. Mm-hmm. And I just see like the girl was in my ward, and I would see her a lot, and I just think it's not okay for the parents to make excuses. Like you said, she handles it she takes care of it and she lets the child know what is expected of him, and he seems to thrive with that.
I agree. I think it's important for the parent to not, I mean, they need to be loving, but I think they need to be firm too, because the child needs to grow and develop in some sense. Obviously they're not gonna, ever be what other people call normal, but they can thrive and they can develop and do their own things, but their parent has to be supportive. And I like that mom is an advocate, but also that she's more firm and she expects him to behave, and not make excuses for him like Camelia was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a different, and honestly, I guess this is probably bad for me that I guess I'm placing judgment where I shouldn't be placing judgment, but I have a easier time with the mom that takes responsibility for her child than with the mom that just lets her child run amok during church. I mean, I have more, I don't know, I sound like kind of a witch when I say that, but I mean,
No, you don't sound bad at all.
I mean, I appreciate that this mom, she wants her child to be respectful and that she's trying to teach him, but then the other mom, I mean, I think the mom has issues, social issues as well, and so maybe she just doesn't understand that that's what she needs to do, but it gets old week after week after week to have somebody else caring for the kids because the mom just doesn't really seem to care one way or the other. So,
well, I think especially at church when you're there for the single purpose of worshiping and expressing your love for the Savior, I think when there's children just running amok, like you say, like you said, and not your parents not tending to them, it takes away from that. You're not able to focus and see the real purpose of being there.
Yeah. So.
And the children have to learn, especially in a church setting, they have to learn that that's a place of reverence. They have to sit down, they have to behave, even though they don't want to. And it's tough for any kid. It's tough for my 3 kids to be able to sit down and stay still and be quiet, but you have to keep at it and you have to be consistent.
And I think that's what the key is that this friend of mine that has dealt with this special needs child, I think that's the key with her, is that she has been consistent, and so her son knows, if I cross this line, this is what's going to happen, and I don't want that to happen. So whereas the other mom is just, fly by night, she's not consistent at all, and so the child can't really thrive in inconsistency either. So let's see. It says, what can we learn from this experience about normative variation?
Maturational delay.
Yeah, maturation.
I don't know. Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
I think so.
Transient disorders.
And
or
yeah.
Go ahead.
You guys go ahead on that one.
I can go first. With the little girl, she's the same age as her son, and they're only I think about 2 months apart. They're both 3 years old. So with the maturational delay, the little girl with can't think of the word all of a sudden, autism, she can't speak. She can't really form her words very well, and so while her son Jax is a little talkative Tonka truck driver, he just talks his mouth off. And so it's really seeing the two of them together. You can really see the variation between the two and the setback that the little girl with autism has. So they're working on like asking her what she wants. Like when she wants to eat, she would just go like point at the fridge. She wouldn't actually say eat or food or anything. So she's like trying to train her like, no, say eat. And she's like slowly starting to pick up words, and if she wants something, she makes her say it and she makes her ask for it instead of just trying to use sign language in order to get what she wants. Because at some point she's going to have to talk in order to get what she wants, so it's best that she learns it now. And I think that's also kind of a persistent impairment. I think, something that she did add about the girl is that she couldn't hear very well. She had something about her ear canal was blocked or something when she was very young, and they didn't discover it until she was about 2. So I think that also slowed down her ability to speak and hear and understand what was being asked of her. So that is something that they're trying to catch her up on as well.
Do they mean by persistent impairment like it's like keeps on coming up and it's not changing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that that's like a big one with my uncle, because it's just, I think with him not having the help that he needed, it just was persistent in the fact that it got worse and other disorders got added on top of it. So I think he has the anxiety and antisocial disorders and bipolar because he had to deal with, not knowing how to handle his ADHD or handle his dyslexia and just feeling out of the norm, I guess. And so it persisted his impairments and kind of toppled on one another and just made it to where he's can't really function in society. And then normative variation and maturational, I can't say that word, delay. He definitely, he walked and talked at first normally, but it was later than his other 3 siblings. And then, of course, he developed his stutter, and then he got help from that. But he definitely wasn't as mature and was delayed in that sense compared to his siblings and compared to children his age. And they saw that definitely when he started kindergarten, that he was definitely, his maturational stage was delayed.
Okay. With mine, I think that the normative variation, I think that with him is that he is like what she said, is that he seemed completely fine. I mean, he didn't really have any issues until after age 3. I mean, he developed normally talking and walking and teething, all those things as a normal child would do, and so that part of it, I think that was something that they wasn't really concerned about, as well as the maturational delay. As she said, he's gifted. He's in these gifted programs, but so I guess the maturational is he's immature. That portion of it is that socially he's immature, but intellectually he's way above his peers. So, and then I didn't really get from what she was telling me the persistent impairments. I mean, I don't think that there's anything adding on to what he has. I think it's just the the Asperger's and the ADHD, and as they learn to treat one, I think that they are, in a sense, treating the other as well. So I don't know if that answers the questions, but so does somebody want to summarize our session?
It just says, did you see any themes or patterns, right, occurring in your discussion?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think all of our, our parents that we interviewed were different. Like their perspective was all different. With Amelia's sister-in-law, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't her kid, but she, helped out and things like that. But she could see, I think she maybe had a different point of view than a parent would.
Definitely.
And then, of course, with Angie, your friend, she seemed like she was definitely an advocate, and she was getting, participating in all the services possible to help her child, with optimum development. And with my grandma, she just didn't really know where to go for the help. And I think when my uncle got the help he needed, it was kind of too late. He had already developed all the different things that he did. So I don't really see like themes or patterns. Do you guys?
Not really.
I think with every parent or situation where you notice a special needs child, I guess maybe a common pattern or theme would be that they have a hard time in social situations. Like it's hard for them to feel accepted and to be able to, I guess, develop normally in the sense of like social aspect. So it's probably harder for them to find friends and to feel like they're, wanted as far as friendships go. So maybe that's a similarity. And of course they always have, emotional issues that go with that, like trouble, like depression and anxiety can build up because they struggle in school, and that's never fun for any child.
Yeah.
To have to deal with.
Sorry.
So maybe those are two common ideas, I guess.
One thing that kind of struck out to me was with Angie's case, the mom started noticing really early on, and she was really proactive, and she got answers right away, and I think that really helped the boy. I don't know what state exactly he's in now, but he sounds like he's fairly accustomed and is like fairly average with his people around the same age in both church and school. And with Sierra, it was their uncle. They just didn't really have the resources, so it just went on and it wasn't solved, and it just got worse because of it. And like you said, the other disorders were kind of probably came about because it went on for so long unattended to. So I think one of the trends maybe could be when you spot it soon and get answers, you can solve it, or you have better chances with it. And if when you don't, it just kind of gets out of your hands, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think also that just the technology that we've had. I mean, when I was a kid, the only thing that you really ever heard of for learning disabilities was somebody that had Down syndrome, and now there's gobs and gobs of different disorders out there, and they're not all labeled under one thing. They're not all labeled under a retard. That's one of the words that they used to use back in the day, and they're not all the same. Every kid has, even two kids that have ADHD or two kids that have autism or Asperger's or whatever it is, they're different. And like you said, Amelia, with this friend of mine, she's been proactive, and I think that sometimes parents are partly in denial. They don't like to think that their child is one that has learning disability. You know, I mean, it's kind of a scary thing to wonder, oh, is this normal, or is this just a normal, or is this something that we need to get help about? And I mean, that's something that we've asked about our son, is because he's spastic sometimes. He's just kind of, you know, but I, you know, I mean, it's, you never know as a parent. You want to do everything that you can to help your children, but you have that in the back of your mind. Okay, am I doing everything, or am I in denial, or, you know? And so I think that's the key.
But what parent wants to admit something's wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Like, every parent wants to believe their child is, I guess perfect is a word for it, but we know our kids are not perfectly perfect, you know, but it's hard to admit that something's wrong, that they're not average in development.
Yeah.
It's got to be hard for any parent. Yeah. But I agree with what you were saying about how each child's different, even if they've got the same disorder. I know with what Amelia is talking about with the autistic girl, it sounds like she's completely different from my brother, who is severely autistic as well. He doesn't talk or anything, and he's similar in the sense that he tries to use symbols or like pointing or just screaming at my stepmother, and so he's kind of made it to where he doesn't have to speak. And I think maybe that's a similarity with autism, but they do seem very different. I've met a couple other children with autism, and they are completely different from my brother. I mean, the disorder is similar, but there's definitely differences. And personality probably plays a role too.
Yeah.
And gender, and of course your parent, like all parents are different, so they're all going to handle the situation differently, so that there's just so many environmental, biological, and whatnot aspects of it, so it makes every case different.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think we've covered all of our questions. Perhaps we should pray that it's recorded.
And that we have a URL for it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping. I told my husband, I said, if I mess this up, I mess it up for our whole group. So hopefully I don't have that on my shoulders for today. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you. And
thank you.
I'm not sure if we have, I haven't looked ahead, so I'm not sure if we have another assignment like this for next week, but if we do, then I guess we'll have it figured out by then, hopefully. So
yeah.
So. All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast.